Come on. There we go. Cool. That's working. And we're going to pop out the chat and move it over here. Do that. Live chat. There we go. Hope you're doing well. Happy time of day to you, wherever you are. Hope everything's going well for you. Let's see here. Michael Stanet says, "Ooh, what you going to use that for?" I'm assuming referring to the title card image, those images there, those cool buildings. I want to build a cyberpunk board, cyberpunk themed board. I could use it for Cyberpunk Combat Zone. I can use it for all kinds of different games. And so I've had those buildings for a long time now, and I finally built them, and now I'm going to start working with that. Morning from Quebec. How you doing, Dragonfire? BF Bulldog. Good moist morning from Yukon, Oklahoma. Yeah, it rained here, not yesterday so much, but 2 days ago, a decent amount. So, Good afternoon from Amsterdam. I set an alarm to not forget my favorite YouTube show. Well, that's very nice of you there, Boss Beast. I'm glad to hear it. VJ Morph, how you doing? Checking in from the in-laws as flight to Korea for family holiday in T-minus 10 hours. Nice. That sounds fun. Cal Urba, how you doing? From Gloucester Point, Virginia. Howdy. Missed most of the irregulars yesterday, so I was determined not to miss tonight. Well, that's okay, VJ Morph. Don't worry about it. Bruno, thank you very much for the hello from Mexico City. Waiting for primer to dry on some ruins and barricades. Whenever I do spray primer, I always end up leaving it outside in the garage to outgas because the propellant kind of gets trapped in the paint layer, and it's kind of, as it outgasses, it smells up your house. So that's why I always leave it in the garage. But if I'm using an airbrush, then it doesn't matter. Morning from Springfield, Virginia, working on cutting thousands of bricks with my hot wire foam cutter to glue on my terrain pieces. Nice. There's a long history of doing that. I've seen a lot of people do it. I've done it myself. Maybe not thousands, but I've definitely done it myself. Motorbreath Jazz, hello. How you doing? Gaming Geekery, battling allergies as I build bead bots for Bangarang in the Gutterlands. I've been trash bashing terrain all week as well. Nice. As far as allergies have been going, I've had some. They've mostly affected my eyes. Stochastic Agency, morning from sunny KCMO. How you doing? Double Dip, good afternoon from Kent, England. Good morning from Kentucky. First time here for this live. Well, Psychotron, thank you very much for coming by. Morning from Mollyland. It is a day of restful resting. Nice. Let's see here. Ralph Hodge, good time of day from Clearwater, Florida. How you doing? Morning from Colorado. Hey from finally dry and sunny Columbus, Ohio. I've heard that it was doing some rain there. G.I. Joe RPG Stories. Hello from Quebec. How you doing? Howdy and good morning from Jonesboro, Illinois. Loosely collected. Howdy. Florida. How you doing? Good morning from Berlin. Gray and cool outside. Well, it's either Berlin or it's Berlin, depending on whether it's in Germany or if it's in Wisconsin. There is a Berlin, Wisconsin, and also a New Berlin, Wisconsin as well. But it's not Berlin. It's pronounced Berlin. I think it used to be pronounced Berlin, and then at some point during World War II, they were like, I think we're going to start changing the name of it, but without changing the name of it. You know what I mean? Good morning from Cleveland. Still working on Trench Crusade terrain this morning. Nice. Afternoon from dry and hot French Alps. How you doing? Way too dry overall here for weeks, but we have had some rain yesterday. Well, that's good. Good morning from Paul Gilbert, Arizona. How you doing? Morning, Adam and chat. I have the last section of a building for Mordheim Printing here in Santa Cruz. We have early June gloom. Yeah, it's like I said, last couple of days, like it was rainy, and then yesterday it was not rainy particularly, but it also was cool, considerably cooler than it was earlier part of the week when I was building and priming stuff. And it's just been damp and cool and cloudy. Marine layer until about 11, then rolls back at 5 to 6. Gotcha. Thanks for helping me procrastinate mowing the lawn. Always glad to help. I mean, it makes sense. Having a nice fall day in the Philadelphia suburbs. Yeah, yeah. Morning from Nora, Virginia. I'm listening along and painting my Salamander's army. I hope you are well. I hope you're well as well. Good luck with the Salamander's army. While in Korea, enjoy the heck out of the food. I miss bibimbap and bulgogi. I've never had bibimbap. Bibimbap. Whatever. I've never had that, but I've had bulgogi. We get bulgogi from a local place pretty frequently. My wife and I. I'm a big fan of it with the purple sticky rice and pork belly. My wife gets the purple sticky rice as well, and tofu. Good morning from Memphis, Tennessee. Going to be watching you while I clean my hobby room. Nice. Those are, I mean, I think you're doing two good things there at the same time. So there you go. Good morning from blistering hot Orlando. How you doing? Good. Thanks for asking. Hope all is well up in Wisco. Things are not too bad. Is that terrain related to new game? Expecting it 2 weeks from now? No. I mean, I guess you could use it in it. You probably. I mean, you can always, you can do whatever you want. But no, it's not. It's not for our new game coming out. Not this upcoming Friday, but the Friday after. Our new game's coming out on the 30th. The proof came in. Everything was cool. Not yesterday, Friday. Well, the proof came in earlier, but Friday I actually got. I ordered 40 copies of the game to take to TMX, to the Tabletop Minions Expo. Let me do this and let me do that, and then I can show you the website for the Tabletop Minions Expo. Look at all those events, my goodness. So yeah, Tabletop Minions Expo, Oshkosh Convention Center, Oshkosh, Wisconsin, coming up on the 7th and the 8th, which is basically the weekend after the game launches. Game launches on May 30th, next Friday or next Saturday and Sunday. The 7th and 8th is the Tabletop Minions Expo in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. And Snarling Badger Studios is a vendor at that, of course, which makes sense because me and Vince are going to be there, so why not? And so we'll have, I think, 40 copies of the new game and about, I think, like 10 copies of every other game. So if you haven't ever picked up one of our other games in the past and you'd like to do so and save on shipping, then, there you go. There's painting classes from Sam Lenz, Vince Venturella, as previously mentioned, and also Raven Shinky. I've got to ask him how he pronounces his last name because I don't know. But Gravenly Studios. He does awesome terrain stuff. You've probably seen him. Maybe you should be following all three of those folks over on whatever on the internet. And yeah, so there's 6 different classes. They're each teaching 2 classes apiece. I need to add, I keep forgetting, I've got to do that today. It's on my list for today. I got to add that Army Painter. The Army Painter sent a whole bunch of paints and stuff like that. So, and brushes, dry brushes, and all that kind of stuff. So if you're in the classes, you'll have access to that stuff. So you don't have to bring your own. You can still bring your own, brushes if you're just like really into your own brushes or whatever. But you won't have to bring paints if you don't want to. So. And then there's a whole bunch of events currently, and they're all demos. It's not like tournaments and stuff like that. It's all demos, no tourneys. And it is basically learn to play Trench Crusade, learn to play Necromunda, learn to play Dwarves and Drafts, learn to play Grimdark Future and Age of Fantasy by One Page Rules. One Page Rules will also have a booth there, as will the folks from Blackout, and they'll be running demos and also selling stuff. And yeah, the 4 vendors are Blackout, One Page Rules. I have to scroll. Higher Purpose Prints, producer of high detail resin miniatures from the STL Flicks library. I don't exactly know what that is, but they're going to be selling pre-printed stuff for you to buy. And then, of course, Snarling Badger Studios. So anyway, you can go to tabletopminions.org/TMX if you are interested. That's pretty much about it there. Let's see here. But yeah, like I said, the books are here, which if you came to TMX last year, you got there and found out that the Death Wizards books didn't make it in time, and so that was a bummer. Let's see here. Good day, Tabletop Beans checking from South Ontario, joining a holiday weekend. That's nice. Dropping in like a battle haggis to greet you all and grab a plan for UKGE. Wow, battle haggis. That's fun. That's a fun word. VJ Morph will do Molly. Bill Gogi fan. Nice. Cool. Eat myself silly. Indeed. Good morning from northeastern Connecticut. Still working on trying to create a dedicated hobby space in my house. It is easier once you have that, obviously. Taking everything down and setting everything up again, always it's hard. So I understand that. Maidstone, Kent, South Jersey. Morning from sunny Milwaukee. Oh, you got sun down there, do you? Well, we don't currently. Dealing with allergies affecting eyes mostly, as well as not camping at a height of allergy season. Bad idea. Yeah. No. Morning from St. Louis. We had a New Berlin in Ontario too, named to Kitchener in 1916. Oh, yeah. Are we perhaps getting more info on the new Snarling Badger game on the next Snarlcast? Actually, no. Tomorrow is the next Snarlcast, and it is Vince and I interviewed the creators, Corey and Eric, of 1490 Doom, which is currently in GameFound. If you're into that kind of thing, I backed a bunch of stuff. The terrain, I backed the cool plastic. This is a 3D printed. You can get this 3D printed terrain STLs and then print it out, and it's super modular and stuff like that. And I also backed pretty much every miniature that they're making. And then I also did actually get the printed book, which I'm not usually into printed books, but I did in this situation. So yeah, so we're doing it. We did an interview with them. I think we recorded it last weekend, and yeah, we will. So that'll be coming out tomorrow. So that should be interesting, I think, if you're into that kind of thing. Let's see here. Good time of day from Bright Surrey, UK. Watching in the house as I've just repainted the floor of my hobby shed with garage floor paint, and it will take up to a week to cure. Oh, wow. Fighting procrastination struggle is real. Indeed, indeed. Will there be a video on some of your favorite makers for your 3D printer? I bought an A1 and I'd love to see some things you'd love to print. Something to think about. Like I said, I've predominantly just printed terrain on my Bamboo A1. I did print that robot for that video where I compared FDM and resin and stuff like that. But for the most part, I just do terrain. So yeah, maybe. I can check out the mini and model shops in Korea. My vet brother-in-law says that they have some pretty good war scale modeling over there. Neat. Served in a hot ceramic bowl with an egg cooking on top as it is served with meat and vegetable also arranged on top. That sounds pretty good. Hello from Taos, New Mexico. How you doing? I was fined for spray painting outside by my HOA. So I'm curious about what you can recommend for setting up an apartment for spray painting inside on a budget. HOAs are a blight on this country. Just straight up. So okay, so if you want to use an airbrush inside, I talked about recently in a video about airbrush. What the heck video was that about? I know I talked recently in a video about getting an inexpensive airbrush. I think it was the one about sponge painting? I don't even remember anymore. When you make a video every single week, sometimes they blur together when you are old and feeble-minded. It was the one about unexpected beginner tips. That's the one. Beginner miniature painting tips 2025. Unexpected? Yes, that one. In that one, I talk about how it's not scary to actually get an airbrush. And in the description for that video, I'm 98% sure there's a link to my Amazon store. Or it's basically, you can go there and it's an affiliate link and stuff like that. But I have a bunch of different hobby stuff in there that you can't usually find in your hobby shop. And or if you just type in Tabletop Minions Amazon store into Google, you'll probably find it. Um, but in there is a very small, inexpensive combo of airbrush and like rechargeable cordless compressor thingy, which I use. It's not my main one, but I use it, and it works really well. Um, my normal setup in the basement, I've got a regular compressor plugged into the wall and all that kind of stuff, and a Iowata. But this is real nice for priming specifically. And I got to sneeze. Sorry. Apologize. And so anyway, yeah, they something like that is like $70 maybe. And then literally all you really need is probably just kind of a decent sized cardboard box. So you kind of turn it on its side, so the top, the open part, is pointing towards you, and you have your model in there, and then you kind of spray inside there. And then, and you might want to shine a light in there so it's nice and bright, because otherwise it can be kind of dark in cardboard boxes. And you don't even need to like blow the stuff out the window or anything like that. As long as you're using normal acrylic airbrush paints, if you're using enamels or lacquers, that's a different story. You definitely want to ventilate that, and it's the fumes in that situation. But if you just spray, and then you also probably want to go to like Harbor Freight or Lowe's or a Home Depot or whatever and get a not particularly expensive, but a decent one of those respirator things that kind of goes straps around your head and then goes over your mouth, and it has like the two filters on the side. That's what I use. Because then that is helping to protect you. Again, it's not from fumes, it's from the particulates floating around in the air. The box catches the overspray so it doesn't hopefully go around your apartment or whatever. And honestly, if it does like go into the box, bounce around, blow out, and land somewhere, simple dusting will take care of it. It won't stick to anything and you're like, oh, it's ruined. It's not how that works. By the time it gets anywhere that it lands, it is dry, so it's just dust at that point. Anyway, so but yeah, that's probably not the worst idea in the world. I would That's what I would do in that situation. Morning from Montreal, out jogging with my 2-year-old daughter. Nice. At home with terrain for Scenario 7 armored terrain is printing. What do you think of 5-inch hills? Won't anything with a base over 32 millimeter won't not climb? I guess I'm not familiar with hills like that. Speaking of Army Painter, I was delighted to see Troy, Sonic Sledgehammer, in their video on YouTube yesterday. Is he new to the team? I don't know. Is he in? I don't know if he's on the team per se. I haven't heard that. If he is, that's news to me. But I know he does definitely do stuff with Army Painter a good deal. But I know last I've seen, he also does other stuff too. But yeah, he does definitely work, to some degree with them. I think they send him stuff from time to time. So yeah, but I don't know that he's on the team per se, unless they said he was, and then I just hadn't. Nobody had let us know. This seems unlikely. That was weird. Just everything got real stuttery over there for a second, so I thought maybe I was dropping frames, but it says 0 drop frames. So, uh, so I know in Australia we have some pretty overzealous local councils, but I just heard about HOAs in the US talk about being all up in someone's business. Some people just love. I think it's generally people who are retired, and they're just like, well, I got nothing else better to do. I guess I better start complaining about my neighbor's lawn or whatever. And so I don't. Luckily, we don't have that here. I mean, in the States there are places that do it, but where we live, there's no HOA. Let's see here. Just picked up some Army Painter Air Paint starter set. Thanks for the 5% savings. Absolutely. It's May 24 here. I think it's May 18th. Gosh, I hope it's not May 24th. I'm way lost then. Morning from Cloudy Elkhart. Currently put off cleaning and expanding my hobby space. Okay, all right. Morning, Uncle Adam. How you doing, David? Good morning from Caledonia. Getting ready to watch the son's graduation. I'll have to watch later. Cheers. Absolutely. I got volume 1 of the John Blanche sets. Haven't tried painting anything with them yet. On the fence about whether I'll need volume 2. Sure. I've got to blow my nose, so I am going to go to the title card and mute the mic for a second. I'll be right back. There we go. Sorry about that. Stupid allergies. All right, so um, let's see here. Afternoon from sunny Pucklechurch. Painting some silver bayonet revenants today. Nice. Have to catch the rerun. Need to wake up in 4 hours. That is a thing. Caledonia. That seems to be a Caledonia in every English-speaking country. Could be. We're from Chile, Saskatchewan. You get to say Pucklechurch and Saskatchewan, very close to each other. That's a pretty good day. Terrain painting is where I would like to share my work. Is where it I like on you should Instagram would be a good place for that, probably. Well, okay place for that. Caledonia, Wisconsin. Gotcha. Yeah. Honestly, seem like the opposite of the freedom the U.S. loves to go on about. Yeah, no, it is. It is interesting, isn't it? It's almost ironic, don't you think? Morning from Omaha. Finished 80% of a Night Haunt army using primarily your Ghost Juice recipe in the last 2 weeks. That plus a few metallic details is the quickest army I've ever done. Ghost armies are real fast when you use Ghost Juice. Yeah, when you use that pastel seafoam, or is it seafoam pastel? No, it's pastel seafoam. It's a pastel seafoam speed paint from the Army Painter. It is a very light. It's not like a mint green. It's a super light turquoisey, maybe, or whatever, with just a touch of mint green, maybe. And yeah, I made a video about it last summer, maybe. I think so. And it you just you prime some night haunts or whatever things you want to be ghosts. It also works on anything else. Like you can take like regular soldiers and then spray them like this and other ghost soldiers. It's real simple. It was a concept that was originally brought to my attention by the fine and wonderful Glacial Geek, Phil from the Glacial Geek YouTube channel, who's also a member of the factory team. He wanted to do a war band for Death Wizards. So he had reached out because we'd been talking about it before it came out. We were in Denmark and we were talking about it. So he was like going to paint up a bunch of different undead and all that kind of stuff and make like a war band. And when he painted this ghost, he just used this stuff. Now he primed the model completely white and then used it on there. And then I don't know if he dry brushed it or not. I'm not sure. But then when I saw it, I was like, that's an awesome idea. Now, for me, I still do a white to black zenithal. I just do a pretty heavy white. So there's very little black. You could also probably just go white to gray instead of white to black. It's up to you. But yeah, so then I did that, and then slopped the stuff on top of it, and then once it dried, went and just dry brushed it a little bit. And yeah, it you can make a whole bunch of ghosts real quick. In the video I showed, and I put it on the thumbnail too. I was like 90 seconds, and I showed at regular speed 90 seconds is how long it took me to just cover the ghost and that stuff. And then again, you can do the dry brushing if you want to, but you don't have to. But yeah, it's pretty cool. Good to hear that you're enjoying it. And again, I got that fun information from my good friend Phil, who will be at TMX. Will you go to LVO in October? No, I already went to LVO once this year. I don't want to go to second LVO. It's not that I don't want to go. I enjoy LVO well enough. The problem is that second LVO is directly the same weekend as Dragonfall, which is a much closer kind of like local miniature convention. It's down in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, which is where Dungeons and Dragons was invented, strangely enough. And yeah, so it's down there. And my friend, remember moderator Matt? Those of you who've been here for a while, moderator Matt is one of the people on the board that helps to run the show. He does predominantly all the charity stuff. It's a big charity convention. Um, it's 400 to 500 people, so it's not a particularly huge convention, but it's a lot of fun. And yeah, it's the exact same weekend as this second LVO. So I was like, yeah, don't prime your lungs. True, very true. Hi from sunny Sweden. Just primed a big backlog of 3D printed terrain today. Now the painting left. Yeah, that is always the thing, isn't it? Um, good morning. Good morning from Southern Oregon. Painting some 15 millimeter massive armies. Oh yeah, I've never been a big fan of 15 millimeter. Never did my thing. Trench Crusade scenario 7 describes the hills as 5 inches tall. Trench Crusade movement is 6 inches. It seems to me that anything with a base over 32 millimeter can't clear the hill and set up on top. I guess it depends on how you do your hills. Like if you're like if the hills are super steep, then yeah. But if it's like a more slight hill, then I guess you could move up. But yeah, you're right. There are some things that can go 8 inches in Trench Crusade. I think my Stigmatic Nuns can go 8 inches, but pretty much everything goes 6 inches. You're right. You need a be right back title card. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Good morning from Albany, Oregon. Been a while since I caught the show live. Well, good to have you, Alex. Supposedly, the attraction to HOAs is that they keep property prices up. So that if your property is worth more, which is fine if you own a property there and makes the rules to raise your worth, but you still got to follow all that dumb. Yeah, I don't know. We don't live on an HOA, and we bought our house in 2010. Yes, we bought our house in 2010. And according to Zillow, it's worth twice what it was when we bought it. But I don't know if I trust Zillow. Um, but and also, to be fair, like 2010 was right after 2008, which was a housing crisis and all that crash and blah blah blah. So I don't know, but yeah, I just there's no possible world in which I would live in a HOA for sure. Haven't gotten the John Blanche sets, but I do mean to. My only minor quibble with the AP double triads is that the dark end isn't very dark. These sets add some nice darks. I th- I think because I have a tendency to work with washes a lot too and do a lot of unifying washes, I've never been super concerned about the triads not getting. I've heard other people say that too. They're like, well, the triads don't get as dark as they could be, and I get that. I do, but I think it doesn't affect me as much, and that's maybe why it doesn't isn't front of mind for me because I have a tendency to paint everything and then slap a bunch of stuff on it, which then has a tendency to darken it down. If I make it darker and then darken it down later, it'll get even darker. And so I have trained myself because of the way that I paint with a lot of I mean, if we're just going to call it what it is, it's kind of slap chop, but I've been doing it for a real long time. Um, I have a tendency to base everything. My base coding colors have a tendency to be a bit lighter because I know I'm going to throw stuff on top of it at the end. It's a bad year for allergy sufferers here too. Working outdoors yesterday, my nose ran the entire time. Yeah, that's a bummer. Coffee and paint minis is my thing now. Good to see you on Morning Sunday. Happy weekend. Absolutely. Farmington Hills, Michigan, 62 years old and just recovering from a cold. So I feel your pain with the allergies. Yeah. Well, Mantic Epic Warpath Kickstarter due for delivery soon. Think that's going to be my second half of 2025 hobby project to get me back into painting without messing with too much detail. Nice. There you go. Caffeinated Miniatures has been building armies and has a ghost army. He has another paint recipe for ghosts that's pretty nice too. Nice. So I met him at Adepticon. We were in line to get, I think, some sort of Filipino food at the same time. There was like a really cool, like there was a bunch of like booths that they had in Adepticon, not in the vendor hall, outside the vendor hall. There was like a sushi place, and there was like a couple of this and that, and there was this place that did this Filipino food, which was spectacular. I went back several times during the 4 or 5 days I was there. Anyway, so I'm standing there in line, and we're chatting, he and I recognize him, and I don't know why. And I think it's just because I saw him down in the um, Grimdark Alley. So we're chatting a little bit and stuff, and he mentioned either he mentioned a YouTube channel or something like that or whatever. And I was like, "Oh, what's your YouTube channel?" And he said, "Caffeinated Miniatures." And I was like, "Oh yeah." And then I'm like, it just kept sticking in my head for a good long time. And when I got back home, I'm like, well, I'm gonna subscribe to that guy so I can follow. And then I go and I look, and I've been subscribed for quite some time. This is why I recognize him, not because I had seen him downstairs, but because I'd watched several of his videos in the past, and I had been subscribed for some time. Not with my um, Tabletop Minions account. I have a personal account that I subscribe to a lot of stuff with, and that has my wife and I use it for watching stuff, and it's got the YouTube Premium thing on it and all that kind of stuff. But the Tabletop Minions account I'm subscribed to a few things here and there, but it's only generally because like I was going to be like a guest on their show, and I figured that if I wanted to chat in the thing, I should be logged in and subscribed and blah blah. But for the most part, I do my normal watching on a separate account. But yeah, so I was already subscribed to him. But yeah, super nice guy, and I've watched a couple of videos since too. Let's see here. I remember when Phil was just starting out with his channel. Great to see him doing so well. I remember, and this is so weird. So a long, long, long time ago, I did 3 giveaways when I hit 10,000 subscribers. I am at 253,000 now, but I was at 10,000 subscribers and I did 3 giveaways. Glacial Geek won one of those giveaways. And I remember because I remember the logo and the name, and also the fact that I had to mail it to Alaska, which is where he used to live at the time, hence the name Glacial Geek. Now he lives in Georgia, which is not glacial at all, really. But that's where he and his wife live. So yeah, that was our first interaction back, I don't know, 2015, 2016, something like that. I'm not even sure. Um, but that was interesting. Um, had one LVO, but what about second LVO? See, the thing is, they're only doing that this year. They're not planning on having 2 LVOs a year. But this year, they're moving to a new place, and they're going to start having it in October instead of January. So instead of waiting until October of 26, they just decided to do one in January and then and then from then on going forward, it'll always be in October of the year, evidently. So let's see here. I live in an HOA right now. The mood of the HOA is laid back, but that can change, which is what I work to guard against. It's fickle that way. I don't like it. No, I can understand that. Yeah. Bought my place in 2000 for 175, now 550. Wow. No HOA. Yeah, there you go. I'd love to go to TMX, but my daughter is graduating that Saturday. I might drive the 2 hours and be there Sunday. Well, there you go. Kelly, how you doing? Tried black as a primer, didn't like it. I generally use black for everything, almost everything. Um, there have been times when I painted some. What did I paint? Long time ago, I painted some ghosts for a War Cry war band, for Night Haunts, and I wanted them. I was going to use the. It's a color made by Turbo Dork called Motherload, and it's kind of a mother of pearl kind of color, and it highly suggests that you put it on a white coating. So I did that. But in most situations, I prime black and then I do a white zenithal. So I don't paint usually from black up. I mean, with these buildings, I start with black, but I'm still going to then give them a base color and then go from there. But with miniatures, it's a little bit different. So speaking of which, I can show you the buildings in theory. There we go. So this is all 4 of the buildings primed. Now, these buildings are from a company called Brutal Cities, which is based out of Australia. So just FYI, if you're not in Australia, the shipping is going to be some for sure. I bought these buildings and several other pieces. I think I have back here. This is basically like little. Oh, hang on, let me go back to the main screen here. These are like little plant boxes. They don't come with the plants, but they're just the little boxes, right? And then you put whatever types of plants you want in there, like fake plants or what stuff you get from the fishing, like the aquarium store or whatever. I don't know. But you put stuff in there, and then it's like you have these like plants in the city, downtown or whatever. My idea is to probably put them to build them like this, and then not put plants in them, but then just have maybe some dead sticks coming out. That's honestly most cities. When I see big planters like this, they usually aren't going real well. So we'll see. It kind of depends on the story you want to tell, I think, with your city board, whether it's a little rundown city or it's like whatever. Anyway, back to the photos thingy. Boom, there we go. So yeah, on Tuesday I spent most of the day outside in the garage putting them together, um, and I used wood glue, Gorilla brand or whatever wood glue, which I like, and I had lots of glue on my fingers that I had to peel off later on, which was fun. But yeah, it went pretty well. And there are multiple, like I said, all these buildings. Like this particular building, you could pop out all of these windows if you wanted. I know they're maybe a little hard to see. You probably see them better on this side, but there's these windows which have got these kind of shuttered up kind of windows, but you could also just like pop them out if you didn't want them to be shuttered up. I wanted them to be shuttered up, so I actually, along the back, I rubbed extra wood glue in the back of them so that they would not pop out by accident, hopefully. We'll see how that works out. But there's a ladder up here so you can get to the roof. I think there's another ladder on the other side or something like that. But and then there's like, you can barely see it down here. I don't think I can zoom in with this. No. But down in the lower part, there's like a door that you would be able to go in. These are all designed so that you can take off each layer so you can play on the inside. I glued them all together because I'm not into that. I just am not into doing a whole, like, oh, now we're going to take off. Now you went down the stairs to the second floor or whatever. It's never been my thing. So I'm not saying you're wrong if that's the thing you like, but for me, I've just not done that. So same with this one. This one's also got that this whole top level can come off, and so you can whatever. But yeah, it's all glued together. There's a big hole in the back. There's like a balcony back there. You can't really see it. I didn't get a good shot of it, but there's kind of a big hole back there. And I think that I'm going to I might put like a police barricade over it or something like that, or even try to figure out how to do like that yellow police, caution tape stuff or something like that. I'm not sure. But again, I'm fine if somebody gets up onto the balcony, but I don't really want people going inside the buildings. There's like a little storefront on the front down here. Where's the? I can't really do anything down. I'm using my mouse to show you where things are, and you're not seeing it because that's not how this one works. But anyway, down the front there is like a little storefront. I think it's called Easy Aug, and it's like easy augments, like where you go to get like, I don't know, cool robot eye or whatever. And then this one's like an apartment building or maybe an office building. There's a part of me that kind of wants to figure out a way to put windows in this so that people don't go inside or something, but I don't know if I don't know, maybe not. Well, we'll see. There's a part of me also that wants to go through and do a little bit of sanding on some spots and then go back and prime again those spots with my airbrush. But we'll see how that works out. This stuff is all an enamel rattle can that I get from the hardware store that the guys from Death Ray Designs, who make tons and tons and tons of obviously MDF, it's the primer that they swear by. They used to swear by the filler primer stuff, but now it's this big tall can. It's taller than normal, silver, Rust-Oleum. It's this black lacquer primer stuff that I get. It is real nice. This is kind of a cool building. It's I don't. It's supposed to be like a data center or something. I think it's kind of small for a data center, but it's got lots of AC units on the roof, so it kind of makes sense. And then there's like a ladder over on the one side behind the. There's a ladder behind the AC units over there that you can't barely just see the top of, and then there's a ladder right on the front. This is real dark. I should have lightened these up a little bit so you could see the details better. That would have been nicer. And then, yeah, we're back again to, is that all of them? Yep. 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 Uh-huh. And there. Yep. So, like I said, I want to do these as like a cyberpunk kind of thing for a cyberpunk style board. And so what I've been doing is I've been playing Cyberpunk 2077 for a while, but I've been trying to kind of like look at the buildings And so many of them are actually just gray anyway, but they're covered in advertising. So my thought on some of these buildings is to put in, is to like put like posters either right on the wall, like what after it's done painting, just glue on like a little poster that I print out, or 3D print a thing that looks kind of like the frame of like a screen, and then put the artwork in there. And then maybe if I'm real tricky, maybe be able to slide different little pieces of like advertising artwork in there to swap them. You know what I mean? But I don't know. That might be a little bit. I don't know. I have designed things like that before in Tinkercad and then 3D printed them. They've worked relatively well. But I've got some ideas. You know what I mean? All right. Let's see here. I currently paint cavalry. What I found out is that contrast looks extremely blotchy and spotty on horses, especially on the flanks. Any idea to prevent or reduce this effect? Contrast any good? I don't really use contrast anymore. I use speed paints. I find speed paints are less splotchy. I think that they blend a little bit better over time when you have to do like half the butt on a horse and then go back and get more paint and then do the other half of the horse. And then if that first part has already started to set up, when you do the second part and you kind of overlap, that's where you get that kind of coffee stain, is what they sometimes call that kind of effect. I find that a little bit less with speed paints. Also, if you add some medium to them, they will also take a bit longer. Or I don't know if have I, because you can get from Army Painter in the Fanatic line, they have something called retarder, which basically is a drying retarder. So it makes whatever you're putting it into take longer to dry, which means it's more blendable and stuff like that. I guess I've never tried that stuff in speed paint, so I don't know how well it would work. Be something to test if you were interested, but let's see here. In the most recent video, was the logo splash screen between each number a new style or an editing snafu? Neither. It was also not between each. It was between some of them. Like there was like the like when you went into the first one, then there was a break, I think, or maybe it was after the first one, but then there was like two, and then there was a break. Those are spots for ads. So YouTube has changed something recently. They used to let you put the ads where you wanted. So you would go, like, you'd upload the video, and then you would go to the thing about ads and then say, okay, I will put this ad at this mark and this ad at this mark and whatever. And if you were smart, what you would do is try to figure out if there was like a small little break or something, like where you took a breath, or like you got done. Like, what the way that I have a tendency to make my videos is that I will do a thing where I talk and talk and talk for a bit, and then it's like a paragraph. Like, I talk for X amount of seconds or minutes, or not minutes usually. It's usually, I don't know. It's usually about a minute, maybe tops, where and it's what like I said, as I'm thinking about it, I'm like, in my mind, it's a paragraph, and we've hit the end of the paragraph, and then there's usually a jump cut in the video, and then I start talking with the next thing or whatever I'm doing. And in the past, I've always been like, I would take the time and look and in the editing software and go, okay, right here is where I want the ad to get dropped in, and then I would go into the back end YouTube software and be like, all right, that's the spot where I want it to go. And for years, they didn't hassle us. They were like, okay, cool, that's great. And then recently, they're like, hey, we have this new system that uses AI, and it figures out really where the best place to put ads is. And so when you go, I want to put it here, a lot of times they come with a little triangle with the exclamation point in it, and they're like, that's not really a good spot. And if you let them do it, they just riddle the video in ads. Secondly, they will still put them in the middle of a word because they're like, well, you took a long breath there, or something, or you blinked, or I don't know. And it's AI, so it's garbage, you know. And so what I've been seeing bigger channels do, not bigger channels in the wargaming space necessarily, but bigger channels with millions of subscribers, I've been seeing them just put in a little ad break, just a little, like, just like a pause, because then when you upload the video and you go into the thing says, I want to put in the ads now, many times it'll already have put them in because it sees the break, and then it just goes, oh, that's the place where we can put the ads. And then it doesn't put in extra ones as far as I can tell. And so if you're just seeing the break and you're not seeing an ad, you're probably a YouTube premium member. So that's probably why. I had a lot of people. This is actually the second video I've done that on. 2 weeks ago I did it on the video then, but back then I made the spots all 3 inches. No, not 3 inches. 3 seconds. 3 seconds wide, I guess. 3 seconds long. When you're editing in video, it's it's on a timeline and it's width. And anyway, um, so this time I only made them 2 seconds long, and it still worked better. But I think it still worked for the ad thing, and they put the ads where they were supposed to. But I think it was uh, less disturbing because I had almost no comments about it this second time. Not but you mentioned it, but that's fine. So yeah, I thought about whether I wanted to put in just the words ad break in that, so when people see it, they go, oh, okay. But I just haven't done it yet, so I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But it's basically because YouTube's being weird and decided they want to let AI figure out where the best part to put ads is, and it's bad at it. So if you just put in some spaces, then it puts them there, and then you don't have to fight with it, and it's just kind of easier. So that's the trick, I guess. Got the John Blanche sets, but 3 of the bottles were gritty and unusable. But AP customer service eventually came through and replaced them. Oh, that's weird that that happened, but good that also unsurprising that they fixed it up for you, because that's kind of the way they work. But that's strange. They're gritty. That's weird. RPG Grandma, how you doing? Going to create an army or two out of a bulk buy box of cowboys and Indians toy figures for a sci-fi game. Neat. Got the Blanche sets as well. Haven't opened them yet. The the only thing I don't like about the Blanche sets, and it's not, I wish there were more speed paints. There are 2 speed paints. There's one in each of those two volumes, and they're both brilliant. And I wish that there were more speed paints because I'm kind of a speed paint nerd. But other than that, yeah. Otherwise, I like the colors a lot. That fiery vermilion is really nice. Enjoying your soothing voice, my soothing voice, while hobbying is so much cheaper and constructive than seeing a psychologist. Well, true, probably, yes. Looking forward to TMX. Nice. See you in June. Absolutely. Building the boxes is a lot more fun than rebuilding. I suppose. Yeah, yeah. Let's see here. I'm still really new to the hobby. Am I crazy for enjoying metal minis? No. I mean, however you want to do the hobby is the best way for you to do the hobby. So some people like miniatures that are metal. Some people prefer resin. Some people prefer plastic. Honestly, lately I've been getting really into like 3D printed miniatures because I don't have to really scrape a bunch of mold lines and build them and stuff like that usually. I mean, sometimes you got to build them, but A, they seem to be easier to build than GW's miniatures lately. And B, you generally don't have to worry about mold lines and all that stuff either. But yeah. I love the old Warhammer Metal minis and Relic Blade. Relic Blade's minis are nice. Yeah. We bought our home in 2000 for 149K. Recently, units in our complex have sold for 750. Whoa, that's crazy. And it's one of those situations where like I get texts and all the time. They're like, "Hey, if you own this house at this address, let us know. We'd love to buy it." And I'd be like, "Well, then where am I going to go?" "Oh, we'll pay you cash." Great. Where am I going to go? I mean, there's not a lot of places for sale, and no, thank you. I'm good. Every once in a while, I respond to those texts and tell them that yes, I will sell my house for $3.5 million. They never bite. It's weird. The fact is I really don't want to move. I hate moving. I just really do not like packing up all my stuff and taking it someplace else. So hopefully we'll never move again. And yeah, so it would take a lot of money to make me want to move. And then I would take a lot of that money and then give it to somebody else and then pay them to move my stuff. And then that would be easier, but still not fun. Morning, Uncle Adam. Love the upscaling of the buildings. Looks great. Well, thank you. I generally like priming, black priming everything, but only because I've got an airbrush. If I had to do all of my base coats by hand, no, sir. It takes ages. Oh, yeah, for sure. If you're doing, like, again, I'm priming stuff black and then next hitting it with a white zenithal. So by the time I take it to the actual, back to the hobby table and start putting colors on it with brushes, it's not black. It's white, but it fades down to black in all of the weird crevices and overhangs and stuff like that, which pops the detail more. You know what I mean? Can see doing the buildings in black as a primer, but my experiments with minis hasn't gone. I could experiment on the next group of toys. I'm going to do terrible things too. My thought process is that the next color that goes on these buildings is going to be sprayed on in some fashion, whether I use a rattle can or whether I use an airbrush. I'm a little bit more likely to use an airbrush, but I don't know. I could use a rattle can as well, just because it would spray. Like it's way faster to do terrain with a rattle can than it is to do it with an airbrush. But there's still a potential that I still end up just using the airbrush anyway. Remember you mentioning that you weren't sure if Brutal Cities was still in business. I checked the other day and posted on their socials, so still open. Yeah, they are. They are still around. They were talking about kind of closing it down, but something changed and they didn't do that. So yeah, you can still find the stuff from Brutal Cities. It's just, I think it's just brutalcities.com. I would not fare well with an HOA. I would probably lead the rebellion. And yeah, no, I see the exact same thing. Yeah. Does anyone use Army Painter speed paint on Starship minis? I would probably, if I was going to do something like that, depending on how big the starships were, I would easily see myself doing it one of two ways. If I decided to use this speed paint, I would probably actually airbrush the speed paint on, which kind of removes some of the speed paint qualities. Like it will no longer flow into the crevices and get darker and that kind of stuff. But it's a nice, like, if what I would do in that situation is I would prime my spaceships black and then use a white paint through my airbrush to paint them like from above, like that Zenithal style, and then say, "Oh, it's a blue ship, cool," and then just hit it with transparent blue, some sort of blue color from the speed paints, and then you're going to get like light blue to dark blue fades and all that kind of stuff. Everything that's going to be great. On the other hand, you could also just prime it black and then use blue airbrush paint and just do the colors you want. Like when I did those spaceships for Battlefront Valkyrie, those are basically like the base coat colors on that is all just regular airbrush paint. So they were primed black, and then I hit them and did a couple of shade, like a darker green and a lighter green on the Kurgans, I think, are the bad guys that are not Klingons. And then the Terrans, I did basically like black and then a gray and then a lighter gray. And then I went through and did details and stuff like that, and even put in some washes and maybe a little bit of speed paint here and there just for whatever. But yeah, it's faster to do that, I think. I love metal minis for the weight while playing, but they are objectively harder to hobby with. I mean, objectively. Well, maybe. I love how metal minis look and feel. I hate how they seem to hate any and all primer. Always scratches off the hard edges. I guess it depends on what you're using. With metal, hmm. There's a part of me that would almost want to do rattle can primer on metal, but I don't know. That's a good question. I haven't worked with a metal mini in so long. That's a good question. I usually craft my terrain pieces from junk around the place. Nice. I wanted this specific stuff because it is a specific type of architecture. The whoops. The reason that the site is called Brutal Cities, from what I understand, is because the creator of the stuff, these buildings and things like that, is a student of architecture. And there is a style of architecture called brutalism, which is a lot of concrete and a lot of just big square and rectangular type shapes. You see a lot of it, especially like in Soviet, like ex-Soviet Russia and things like that. You see a lot of it probably on the eastern side of Berlin and all that kind of stuff or whatever. And it's just these big, like, but yeah, it's so he's basically doing using brutalism as a style, and then making these buildings, which I don't know if maybe he does fantasy buildings now. Actually, let's go see. Let's do that. That sounds like fun. Brutalcities.com and website button. There we go. Okay. So, made in Australia. All products. So, doesn't show that they have any 15 millimeter or 6 millimeter. It's all the 32 millimeter or 28 to 32 millimeter stuff. city terrain, terrain bundles, modular terrain, scatter terrain. Oh, they had decals. Oh, well, heck, I want some of that. That'd be dope. Hmm. Oh, unfortunately, the cool ones are sold out. Well, that's to be expected. Anyway, but otherwise, not by game. All products, city sci-fi terrain. There we go. So that's like a really cool photo here, that has definitely got like a brutalism vibe. Um, like this thing here, I don't the plaza, the tower bundle. I don't own this, but I kind of want to. Look how small those dudes are down at the bottom. Like those are like Space Marine guys or whatever. Look how big this building is. Um, but yeah, it's just like this stuff is cool. Like this is $177 and it's on sale at $10 off. And the shipping has got to be, we don't want to talk about brutal. But yeah, a lot of this stuff is interesting. Like this is the Infinity Systems data center. This is the thing that I have got built. You can kind of see it from another angle now here. Um, there's your air conditioning units, and then there's like a garage door on the front, and then some stuff and blah blah and everything. So that's cool. And this is the office building. Although this person, see, so that's the office building that I've also got there. That's kind of neat. Um, but you'll notice that all of these buildings, for the most part, are very gray. And it's because brutalism very frequently relies very heavily on concrete. So there's that for sure. Um, this is the other one, the Easy Og shop that I did. And you can see it's got like a little overhang and a little garage door and like a door. It's like a shop down here and all that kind of stuff like that. And again, it's cyberpunk terrain, perfect base for your illegal augmentation ops. Nice. And do I have the last one here? Oh, there's the little planter boxes. Here it is. Cabbage palms. So this is actually what it looks like from the other side. It's maybe a little better looking from this side. But yeah, so this is, and you can see, like I mentioned about how some of these windows pop out and some, don't. I just kept all mine not popped out. But yeah, they're neat stuff. And if you're closer to Australia, it's going to be a lot better for you to order this stuff. But I don't know if they have they, like I said, I think when I ordered my stuff at the end of 2020, they had a special where if you ordered like $200 worth of stuff or something, then you got free shipping maybe or something like that. And so that's when I pulled the trigger. And then I've been, they've been sitting on a shelf unbuilt for quite some time. But they got lots of different things, so that's pretty cool. Got a cool like radio thing and like I said, a lot of them are designed too, so you can kind of take them apart and play on the inside as well. But I haven't. I've decided to basically stay at the Baxter building. That's fun. Um, but yeah, so like this is basically almost the set that I bought, but I don't think I got this. Did I? This doesn't look familiar to me, but the rest of these buildings I've already built now and are ready to go. So, anywho, but they're very interesting. I think they're cool buildings. Let's see here. Where was I? Starship Minis. Um, love my old metal orcs, but they are a lot more work than plastic. I can understand that. Been painting for about 6 years and want to start a channel. Can I get started using just my phone and laptop camera? Yeah, you totally can. I would suggest doing so, honestly. I tell people all the time because I'll have people ask me about like, oh, I want to get into it. Is this the right camera that I should be saving up for? Should I be doing this? Should I be doing that? And I always tell people, just start with your phone and because it might turn out that you film 2 or 3 episodes and they're like, oh wow, I really hate this, I really don't like it at all. And then at that point you're not sitting on like a $2,000 camera that you bought so that you could start your YouTube channel, or $1,000 camera and like a $500 microphone and a this and a that and a light and all that kind of stuff. Just start doing what you like are doing, and then kind of go from there. When I first started, now admittedly I was a photographer. I mean, still am too, but I was a photographer, so I had a not a particularly fancy camera, but I had a camera that could technically shoot video. My first videos were shot on a Nikon D5100, which I had to trick into shooting. Well, that's not true. I didn't have to trick it into shooting video. I had to trick it into kind of giving me manual control of how I shot video. Later on, as I got newer cameras and stuff, now cameras are much more about like, yeah. You tell me how to do it if you want to. Otherwise, it can do it auto as well. But being a photographer guy, I was like, well, of course I wanted to do this and this and this and blah blah. So, but at the time, I had to basically kind of trick it to allow me to like lock the ISO and stuff like that. It was a whole thing. Um, and then I used a wireless mic that you not a wireless mic, it was a wired mic that you plugged into the camera, and then it was like a little lapel mic type of thing, and that was like $25 on Amazon. And then I already had some lights that were, they were gonna work, and I used those. But you can get away with a lot of different things with lighting. But I would tell you to start with the stuff you have, and then if you find that you are enjoying it and you want to do more of it and all that kind of stuff, then totally be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna start. I'm gonna save up and get a better microphone, a better camera, a better whatever. Do that. Um, let's see here. Never know with a data center. Some fit into a container, I suppose. Sure. I like rescuing unloved old minis and fixing them when possible. Nice. But I am not anti-plastic or other materials. Cool. Morning from lovely Ocean City, Maryland. Have a good show. Well, how you doing? I hope you're having a good time in Ocean City, Maryland. My sci-fi stuff, which includes the need to make armies, I am going full on toy figures to modify to my needs and probably STLs. Nice. What is the difference between Army Painter Retarder and Stabilizer? So Stabilizer is basically medium. So how does this work? Basically it is medium. Okay, so the way the paints work, I'm just trying to. There's this material, and then there's pigment floating in the material, and that's paint, right? Um, the When you're using medium, it's the stuff with no pigment, right? So it's the stuff that's the fluid. Pigment is generally a powder. Sometimes I guess there can be liquid pigment, but mostly it's a powder. And so it is suspended in the medium of the paint. So you buy a bottle of paint, it is basically medium with pigment. When you buy a bottle of medium, it is just medium with no pigment. So it's like transparent paint, basically. So when you want to kind of thin your paints, you can add water because they're water-based paints, they're acrylics. But if you really want to thin them incredibly thin, if you keep adding water and water and water to the paint to thin it more and more, eventually the medium starts to separate because it can't dilute in the water anymore, and it starts to clump, and then that means that they call it breaking, and what happens is the pigment breaks, and then it gets bleh, and so it kind of clumps together as you're getting into the very 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 thin layers if you're getting real super fancy with your glazing. If you don't want it to do that, instead of adding water, you add medium. Some people swear by medium for any kind of thinning. I'm fine with using water until I start wanting to do glazing, then a thinning is better. Retarder is basically an additive that just makes it so the paint takes longer to dry, which allows you to blend it more. So if you're doing like wet blending, you always want to use a little bit of retarder to it so that when you put color A onto model, and then you wipe off your brush, and then color B, you put it on the model, and then you sort of wiggle them together. Like you've got color A here, and you start painting color B over it, and then you're sort of wiggling it together, however you want to wet blend it. Sam's got a lot of videos, and so does Vince, about wet blending, and they both swear by wet blending. Um, it is easier to do if you add a little bit of retarder to both paints so that they stay workable longer, right? And we're not talking about like days, or we're talking about minutes or maybe an hour, but probably more like minutes longer. But acrylic paints can dry super fast. So more up-to-date cyberpunk uses similar buildings but painted over in white and pastel color combinations. Interesting. Just picked up my first box of speed paints today. Nice. Some Infinity Terrain, or yeah, companies have plastic neon signs, and yeah, like one of the things that came with one of my One of the buildings, one of the Brutal Designs buildings, was like a bright orange piece of acrylic that was like laser engraved, and it just said something like "Brutal Cities" on it or whatever. And then you could just kind of hang it over the like the top edge of one of the roofs and stuff, and it looks kind of like a sign. But I've got some other ideas of things I want to do for signage and stuff like that. I think um, converting some void scarred Corsairs into Sardaukar from Dune. Very fun side project. That does sound fun. That's pretty cool. Um, let's see here. Hi from Portland, Oregon. Speaking of adding windows to terrain, a trick I came up with to sell glass without needing to detail the interiors is to use foil covered paper available at craft stores. Well, I can see that. Yeah, yeah, makes sense. Benjamin, good to see you. Premium has its advantages. I mean, that's, yeah, YouTube Premium is pretty great because then you don't have to worry about ads at all, which is very nice. The ads on YouTube are popping in at annoying places more regularly. Yeah, that's this change, I think, just started on, I want to say the 12th of May. I mean, they were telling us about it for a while and stuff, and then there was like a thing where you could opt in or opt out of something, but then if you do this, then this happens, and it was a whole thing. And I was just like, ugh. And yeah, so I just felt like putting those little spaces in there would just make more sense. But everybody who's been like, wait, why did that happen? Every person who's mentioned it so far, I'm like, do you use YouTube Premium? And they're like, and you're like, well, because the people who are, still, watching the ads and stuff like that are, well, you're like, oh yeah, okay, or you're probably not even noticing because the ad is like there's like maybe a second of logo, then there's ad, and you wait for a while, hit skip, and then come back, and there's maybe another second of like that space or that block, and then it goes back into the video. So I saw the breaks, and I am not a premium member, so it didn't put ads there. I mean, I guess suppose sometimes there's. I mean, you'll still see the break sort of, but there'll usually be an ad there. But if it doesn't put an ad there, then I don't know. I'll take a look and see. I'm really sick of one ad from a lame story channel that ads drive me nuts. Well, that's a bummer. Shorter ad card. Just thought it was desensitized to it already. It was a nicer length the last video. Yeah, like I said, this video I did 2 seconds instead of three. I think three was a little bit too long, but 2 seconds also did not like. How am I trying to say this? 2 seconds didn't like affect the AI or whatever to make it not put the ads there. It worked for its intended purpose, and I was concerned, but I thought I'd give it a try. I'm a scientist. I'm experimenting over here. So creators now make special breaks for the ads during the content like they did in the TV for decades. The circle closed, it seems. A little bit. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the thing is that you're like, well, if you guys are going to keep using this crap AI system to put stuff in the wrong spot, then I guess we'll just have to, plan it a little bit. And then, I mean, but it makes sense. Like, because honestly, like a couple years ago, they would just throw an ad in and wherever, and then you'd just, middle of a word to be like, ugh, and then but it's a little bit less so now. Working on signs for my Shatterpoint terrain, and I'm looking for something to give them a glow from behind to light them up. Not sure if small LEDs are the answer. I don't know. So I bought, where did I put them? I bought, I don't know what they're called, Aptech or Agptek, AGPTEK. I don't know. It's all made up AI garbage, but they're LED tea lights. I got them on Amazon. Now, normally LED tea lights are two things. They are normally flickery. You turn them on and they sort of flicker, 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 and they're normally a warm color like this, like flame is. But if you look around enough, you can actually find, and this is a honking box of them, you can actually find them to be daylight balanced ones that don't flicker. Well, okay. This one's funny. All right. This one. There we go. So they're daylight balanced as opposed to like that warm light, right? And they don't flicker. They don't go flicker, 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 or whatever. They just stay. And that's what I really technically wanted, because then I can take these and put them in sci-fi buildings. If I'm doing a fantasy building, then I kind of want the warm ones to flicker because it looks like there's a fire in the hearth inside that building or whatever. But for these are going to be great little things. and they were relatively inexpensive, and they came with the batteries. Because I was like, I'm going to have to buy batteries for all these, and I'm like, no, that price actually is with the batteries, which I was kind of stunned by. And you'll notice this looks like a little flame. I don't know if you can see that. Got that little flame thing going on, all that stuff, like blah blah. But if you take a knife, you can pop that entire part off, and then you just have this part, and then you can hide it in even smaller spots because it's not as big as, you know, this whole big honking thing. So anyway, if you do a search for LED tea lights, daylight balance, no flicker on whatever, you'll be fine. Um, I should throw something in my Amazon store too for that same thing. But they work nice. Now, admittedly, because of the way that the light, that the plastic bit there, it does throw a bit of a light. So if you want it to be more diffused, you're going to have to figure something out for that. But you can also, one thing I want to try is get a piece of colored acrylic and then have this on the inside of a piece of terrain, point right at it, and then hopefully light up the piece of acrylic a little bit because it's so directed in that fashion. But um, anyway, I bought a box of these to try them out and everything like that, and I'm looking forward to doing that as well. You can get like special, LEDs and hook them all together to a battery and wire them and all that kind of stuff. Or I'm like, or I could just get a bunch of these, which is what I did. Never entertain AI and AI use. Just block stupid and praise the Omnissiah and fight and Saint Sarah Connor. Yeah, I'm not an AI fan. Just wish I wasn't broke most of the time lately so that I could buy the John Blanche sets. Gotcha. Painting my Chaos Dwarf Minotaur for Blood Bowl. Pretty cool. Light Sheet. I'm not familiar with Light Sheet either. I love your content, but whenever you have the chance, you blast GW and 40K for why? I don't agree with a lot of what they're doing. As far as, I mean, like they do some cool stuff. I did a video recently about how um I liked the stuff that was in the new Blood and Zeal Kill Team box. Uh, both sets of those models were pretty cool. I built some of the sanctifiers and painted them, and then since that time, that video, I also built like 4 of the goremongers and painted them on Twitch. I stream on Twitch twice a week. Um, but I'm not going to use them for Kill Team because I don't really like the Kill Team game. I used to love Kill Team. When Kill Team, the first standalone Kill Team box game came out in 2018, if you go back and look at my videos, I made a lot of videos about Kill Team, and I was a very big fan of the original Kill Team. And then in 2021, they made a new version of Kill Team, which I did not like. And so I just let people know that I don't like it. Now, I try not to I I try not to talk about like Warhammer stuff all the time because I don't want to be one of those channels that's just like constantly negative and everything like that. So instead of, and again, like I said, from time to time, I make a video where I'm like, hey, good job. I really liked both of these sets. Looking at the new Kill Team box that's going to be coming out sooner versus later. I forget what it's called, but it's got like some AdMech versus Tyranids or something. Some of the AdMech are kind of cool looking. The Tyranids not really. They're okay, I guess, but I'm not really into Tyranids, so But um, yeah, I don't know. I understand that they bring a lot of people to the hobby to some degree, but then I think that they overcharge a lot. I think that that a new edition every 3 years is a really bad idea, unless you're talking about, I guess, their bottom line. But yeah, I just feel that they, as a big corporation, they don't treat their customers very well, and I think that I don't know. We'll see how it goes, but I just don't think that they treat their customers as well. And so I'm a bigger fan generally of the companies that do treat their customers better and like to not constantly be like, well, we got to keep making new, keep making new, keep making new, you know. Oh, you got to buy all those books again because that's a new edition, So I know that it took you almost 3 years to build and paint your army, but now you got to new edition, and now those guys aren't really as good as they used to be, and so you probably should buy these guys that we came out with because they're new, and it's this constant kind of treadmill, and to try to get as much money out of the customer base as possible. And I don't know, it's just so there's things that they do that bother me. As soon when they do things that I think are good, I like try to call that out if I can too. But I either go, yeah, this isn't for me, or I just more often than not these days I just don't talk about, like, they like, oh, a new thing came out that I'm not interested in. I don't talk about it. There's no reason to. So that's, I guess, the answer to that. Let's see here. Not sure if you can answer this, but are you still going to be doing your brush line with Monument Hobbies? It was the perfect pack for me to save a few bucks, and sad to see it go. Yeah, there shouldn't be, there's no brush line with Monument Hobbies anymore. If you still like those brushes, like, they're they're pro synthetic brushes. If you get a 00, a number 2, and a number 4, that's basically the same brushes that were in my pack. They just won't have the fancy handles with the, logo or the text and the, the black and the red. They'll be blue, I think. I think they're blue, but they're basically the metal part and the bristles, same as the brushes that I did. But yeah, I'm hoping sooner versus later there'll be a new brush kind of thing going on at Army Painter. We'll see how that goes. But for right now, yeah, there's no basically, because I started working with the Army Painter stuff, I'm not working with the Monument people on that kind of situation. They're nice. They're nice folks, and I think their product is good. The brushes are good, and the paints are good. The paints are different than what I like to do. A lot of people, and Jason himself has talked about this, because he doesn't really use a wet palette. His paints aren't designed for wet palette, so. And I was always using my wet palette, and I was always like, why are these like this? Like, I like the colors and stuff at the time, but for me, the big thing about Army Painter in comparison is two things. Number one, it's a thicker paint and it works better on a wet palette, which is how I like to paint. And secondly, now with the Fanatic paints, that whole Fanatic, or what do you call it, the triad, the flexible triad, the family of colors or whatever, knowing specifically that if I decide that this is my base color, that I've got multiple colors to pick from for my highlights, and I won't be getting, like, I know that this is the same shade of blue as the where I started. It's just lighter, that kind of thing. Like with other paint brands, I've found that, like, okay, I like this blue, but what's the color to highlight it? Well, I could just go grab a lighter blue, but it might not be the same hue, which is the technical art term, as this blue. You know what I mean? And then you might just say, well, just add white to the blue and you should be fine. Sometimes, yes, but also then I don't like mixing paints. I like to be able to write down, I use this blue for this and this blue for the edge highlight, or this blue for this and this blue for the dry brush or whatever. And so having these, like, scales of colors, this is the darkest one and this is the lightest one of the desaturated greens, I really like that kind of, it seems maybe like a crutch, but sometimes, sometimes your leg is broke, so you need a crutch. And I'm just bad at picking highlight colors unless I have that sort of, like, this is the lighter color of this because they've been hue matched, and so I like that a lot. That is one of the many reasons why I prefer the Army Painter paints. Light sheet is well used by modelers of Star Trek ships. I've not heard of light sheet. Is it something you buy and then you plug into it and then it, like, lights up? Light sheet. I'm getting a lot of stuff about microscopes. Light sheet microscope, microscopy. Yeah, I don't see that stuff coming up. Is that go under a different name, or is it two words? Either way. Motto of another hobby channel I subscribe to is make it what you want it to be. Yeah, absolutely. You gotta, the only person you need to impress with your hobby is yourself, in my opinion. Good cold and cloudy morning from Saint Jerome, Quebec. I've recently painted a kill team of Death Guard, and I couldn't be more proud. Nice. That's exactly that's who you're supposed to impress, is yourself. just moved and I hate it so much. It reminds me of how much of a hoarder I am. I mean, there's that too, but also just, yeah, it's just no fun to pack up all your stuff and take it someplace else. It's a lot of work and it's no fun. Hi there, Tio Adam. How you doing? Manny from Miami here. Have you thought about making a best of tabletop minions where you go over some of your older videos? You have so many great gems that just pop up anyway. I mean, the video that I did last weekend or last Friday, not this past, but was kind of a, I don't want to say a redo, but it was a looking at again. It was again about how to um beginner miniature painting tips, which I made a video about that like, I don't know, 9 years ago or something like that, maybe longer. And so I was like, I should take a look at that video and try to see like what things need to be kind of updated because, paints change, technologies change, techniques change, all kinds of stuff like that. So here and there, yes, I guess is the short answer, but not necessarily a big long. There's a podcast I listen to called Last Podcast on the Left, and they've started a kind of a new. Every once in a while, they'll have an episode where they call it Last Update on the Left, which they will basically go back to a story about some thing that they've talked about in the past and update and talk about either new things that have come out. They're a true crime podcast, so they'll talk about new evidence that's come to light or this or that or anything. Or it's interesting. I got to declare a moratorium on hobby purchases. Well. Good morning from Columbus, listening to live cast while at my storage unit reorganizing my hobby museum. Nice. RPG Grandma says, I can't do HOAs. I lived in one as a teen and I hated it. They would count people's flower pots, and if you had one too many marigolds in your flower bed, demand you move it. Oh, good Lord. That's just like it's like a dystopia. You know what I mean? Is what they're trying to do. Like everyone's house has to look the same. Like, no, thank you. I use acrylic on metals. Yeah, acrylic is. I mean, it'll work on anything. It's just that sometimes sometimes if paint doesn't stick to metal miniatures very well, sometimes the metal miniatures just need to be cleaned. Like you literally just a little bit of like dishwashing detergent or whatever, and just like a little touch of it in some water, and you scrub it with a toothbrush. Sometimes metal models they'll still have the mold release agent from when they were poured into the mold, right? Like you basically, when you're going to pour metal models into a mold, and you don't pour them, they're generally spin casted. It's a whole thing. You can look up spin casting online. But when you are setting up the molds for the next spin cast, you kind of get this powder inside there, or maybe it's a spray, or maybe it's a spray powder. I don't know. But it's the stuff that's generally referred to as mold release. And it's kind of like that stuff you spray in your pans so that your cakes will come out of them. You know what I mean? I referred to that stuff as Pam recently, which is a brand name, and someone in the comments is like, "Oh, look at you, fancy with the brand name Pam." And anyway, yeah. But when the model comes out of the mold, then some of that stuff, which is designed to not let stuff stick to it, is still on the model. It's definitely with poured resin molds or models. You really want to clean those. You definitely need to. But even with metal, with plastic, not so much, because the plastic is this super hot injection molding into like steel molds, and I don't think that there's much in the way of like a mold release that gets put inside there. So you don't. I've never cleaned a plastic model ever, and it's never been a problem. But resin, poured resin and metal are definitely things that you give a little scrub it with an old toothbrush and you should be better off. Paint will stick to it better. Brutalism for the win. I've not watched that movie. There's a movie with Adrian Brody, I think, called The Brutalist. I have not watched that. Where I think he's the guy that invented brutalism. I'm not exactly sure. Good morning from Kansas City. How you doing? Loving the old school metal wood elves. I do like a bit of that old style that GW had. It's interesting because a lot of people talk about like retro models that they love and all that kind of stuff. And I have a tendency to not. I don't know what it is. There's a couple, I guess. Maybe that's not completely true. Some of the old Plague Marines that were in metal, some of those are kind of cool. There's a model that I still have. It's painted up and it's a metal one. And it's a Plague Marine. And he's carrying, it's the craziest thing. It's a Plague Marine with a plasma gun, except that plasma gun is made of wood. Why would you make a plasma gun out of wood? They start on fire and they kill people all the time. Like why? But you can definitely see wood grain to the main body of the plasma gun, and it's just crazy. And that model I think is still pretty cool, and that one's kind of retro. But I do find, frankly, that I don't like old Space Marines. I prefer Primaris. I think there's the proportions are better. They look better, like all that kind of stuff. I know there's a lot of people out there who hate Primaris. I think they look way better. Um, but people like what they like. You know what I mean? And experimenting with getting enamel off of old minis so far, it's a slow process. Um, my favorite stuff for stripping paint off of miniatures is the stuff that I get from from dollar stores, and it's bright yellow, and it's called LA's Totally Awesome. You might be able to find it at Lowe's sometimes too. It is a bright yellow degreaser material called LA's Totally Awesome. You just pour it straight into like some sort of plastic tub, like a leftover Cool Whip container or whatever. Save a container or two from things that you eat, and then you can use that as like a disposable whatever. You pour some of that stuff into it. You drop some models in there, leave them in there for several days or whatever. Come back later, um, scrub them off with the toothbrush underneath the water in your sink or something like that. And yeah, I have not yet found a paint that will, like, every once in a while in the deep crevices, you'll get a paint that's like, no, I'm staying here. And that's fine. But yeah, for the most part, LA is Totally Awesome will definitely get rid of paint off of stuff, and it's not like dangerous. It won't melt plastic or anything like that. Like I wouldn't drink it, or I'm still gonna wear gloves when I'm using it, but still, it's fine. No fantasy except maybe Shadowrun. Shadowrun's got a vibe of fantasy. Yeah, I get it. That's true. I love metal minis. I'm a dental technician by trade, and I use my gold crown finishing skills to clean up the metal figure. Then I sandblast the surface, and it holds primer beautifully. Oh, nice. That's pretty cool. A tiny little sandblaster would be kind of useful in some situations. I get that most hobbies don't have access to a dental lab. True. That is also true. Brutalism actually comes from a French word for concrete. Makes sense. There you go. There are examples of brutalism being painted, though. Interesting. Um, let's see here. Whoa, I'm way. There we go. Okay. I'm going to be experimenting with toys as the type of plastic can be difficult. It has to be cleaned super well and tends to chip paint off. I've done it successfully with patients in the past. Gotcha. Is there a good site that sells STLs of brutalist buildings? Not that I've seen. Um, that's a good question, but not that I've seen. I don't. Well, because the main two that I have a tendency to get buildings from, it seems, are Corvus Games Terrain. They've got a bunch of cyberpunk stuff, but I wouldn't say it's brutalism though. Corvus Games Terrain and poke and websites. So digital, yeah. There we go. No, go away. Digital STL files, urban and heroic, which basically means Marvel Crisis Protocol, Galactic Battles, which I'm sure probably means Star Trek, or sorry, Star Wars, 6mm sci-fi, which means basically BattleTech, Grimdark, which means cyberpunk. Here we go. I don't see. I see modern warfare, hard sci-fi. Okay, so cyberpunk. I don't see anything brutalist per se, but there's definitely nice looking stuff. This one I painted and it's in my basement right now. I feel I don't know if I like my paint job yet, but it's not bad. Push comes to shove, I reprime it and start over, which is not the end of the world. And I do want to get some cars like this and stuff like that, and you scatter them around on the board that I want to do for scatter terrain, obviously. That's about all he's got for cyberpunk, so I don't know about that. Who else do I know that does it? Imperial Terrain, but they are mostly honestly Star Wars stuff. Printable STLs. Yeah, most of their stuff is definitely vibed towards Star Wars Legion and stuff like that, which is fine, but that's what they do. They used to have Imperial Terrain used to have this awesome website called, I forget what it was called now, but it was basically you could make your own STLs. You could like say, okay, I want to do this style building, and then you could on each side of the building you could move greeblies around and change the door where it was, and you could do all these different things. You had different choices for different types of layouts and all this kind of jazz, and you would go through all that jazz and everything, and when you were done, then they would say, okay, that'll cost $12, and then you would go, okay, cool, and then it would process all the STLs and then sell them to you basically for $12 or whatever, but you could customize everything, and it was super cool. I feel like it was probably super server intensive, and then they were like, this isn't making us the money that we would like, and then they shut it down. But the stuff that I bought from that site, I still have, like the STLs. So if I want to print new ones, but I've had, before I had my own 3D printer, I had my friend Matt from Game 4 Matt for the Game 4 podcast and stuff like that. He printed me a bunch of stuff in the past. Yeah, none of this looks brutalism. This all looks Star Wars. What's the other place that I go to? Oh, war scenery. Is this right? Yeah. But again, they've definitely got a bit of a Star Wars vibe, but they also do stuff for, well, they do a bunch of different stuff here. Terrain. So you get some rebel bases, trenches and stuff like that. This is definitely all Star Wars coded. Star Wars, Star Wars. Here we're getting into Imperial Had blocks, which, if this is what I think it is, this is probably aimed more towards the epic scale, whatever they call it now. Legions Imperialis. Yeah, that looks right. But I think some of this stuff might also be regular 28 millimeter scale. Here's a bunch of Eldar shenanigans. Here's some more stuff that looks vaguely Star Trek or Star Wars. I mean, I know I have a printed and primed version of this one currently sitting downstairs in my airbrush room that I need to paint up. That's actually a nice look. What else? I mean, there's great looking stuff from these companies. This stuff looks like it came straight out of Dawn of War video game. So if you're into that, you can definitely do that. But as far as brutalism, no, I think that would be that's a spot that'd be really useful. I think for people to come up with, because I don't know. The only downside is I wonder how well it would print. Like the MDF stuff works pretty well for brutalism, but I don't know. These guys could pull it off. I'm sure that they're smart. I've met these guys before. They come to a lot of conventions. They're German, and they come all the way from Germany, or from Germany to, like, they were at LVO. They were at Adepticon. Are they usually at Nova? I don't remember if they're at Nova or not. I think they might be. Maybe not. Anyway, I don't see any brutalism in here. I see a lot of sci-fi shenanigans. I see a lot of cool stuff. A bunch of Tatooine vibe going on. They got lots of stuff going on, but no brutalism that I know of. And also then they've started to get pretty heavily into actual miniatures too, and those are pretty cool too. So if you're into that kind of vibe, then that's the kind of vibe that you're into, and you should check them out. Let's see here. Frankly, autocorrect, I'm getting tired of your shirt. I get it. That's nice. It's crazy how good of a setup some of these YouTubers are starting to have. Who's that? I talked with Steven from Vanguard Tactics, and I guess he's really put a bunch of money into the studio and everything like that for what they're doing over there, which is very cool. I used rattle can primer on my last metal minis. It's what I did with my old 40K minis as well. Sure. Bought some bulk fantasy figures from Amazon, those gray ones, and successfully painted several of those and a bunch of Halloween mummies. So that's pretty cool. Back in the days of Justin TV, which is the prototype kind of to Twitch, we were amazed if we could get 720 to stream live over 3G. But the best cameras you can use is the one you have right now, or so they say. True. Like this camera that I'm using here for my face cam is a Lumix GH5, which is overkill, frankly. But the old camera I had on there, which was a Lumix GH7 that would no longer record anymore for some reason, that camera was fine and worked well, but it did not have auto ISO. So as the sun would come out and the clouds would come out and everything, I was constantly having to, remember when I used to have to constantly adjust to get it because it was too dark and too light and too dark and too light. This one now has, like I said, it has no, or it has the ability to set the ISO to automatic, so it will change a little bit as things get lighter and darker. The aperture doesn't change because I want it to be a nice kind of shallow aperture, so stuff is kind of blurry back there, so you can't see all my mess as easily. And the shutter speed's got to be locked because it's video, so it's locked at the shutter speed that it's at. But that's why I use that particular camera for this situation. So yeah, like I said, it's kind of overkill, but whatever. I already had it. I didn't buy it for this. This is the camera that I used to use to shoot my regular Friday videos, the kind of shoot, face cam type shot for my regular videos was always this GH5, and then I upgraded to a GH6, and then that's what I use in the studio. So I had this GH5, and I'm like, well, this will work here because I needed something that had the auto ISO so that I wouldn't be constantly adjusting the lens. GW's new wood elf dragon tempts me, but it's metal and plastic. Oh, is it for not Age of Sigmar, but the other one, the old world? Because I wouldn't think that they would make anything metal these days if it's like new and it's for like Age of Sigmar, but I could be wrong. What's the best method for building metal minis, particularly if they've got small details? I use CA glue, and if it's a big chunk and it like looks like it's going to need some support, then I have a tendency to pin it, which basically means you like drill a hole. If there's like an arm socket here, you drill a hole in there and you put like a piece of you glue in a little piece of like a paper clip or something like that, a little piece of metal rod or whatever, and then you have to drill a hole on the thing that you're going to attach, and then you're gluing it together, but also there's a piece of metal that's going in between there with that pin, and that helps to hold it so it doesn't snap off as easily, I guess. Running from Pittsburgh, got a little break between trips, so poking my head in. How you doing, Life Blighter? I still apply undercoats as primer by brush. The only things I tend to spray prime are terrain. Gotcha. I really like. I was really surprised about how well I liked the brush on primer from Army Painter. I just wish it came in black. It's only in gray, but I wish it came in black. I've got two things to tell them that they need to do. Number one, I've been telling them that they need to make an airbrush primer that matches every rattle can primer that they currently sell. I really want that to happen. And then the second thing is now I think they should also make the brush on primer in black as well as gray. But, if they're just going to make one brush on primer, I can see it being gray because that kind of splits the difference. But, really weird question. But have you ever had trouble deciding that you're quitting a game for good? I got into the hobby with 40K and increasingly feel I'm kind of over the rules and prices. The short answer is I would tell you to go and look at one-page rules. If you're into 40K, then you're looking at Grimdark Future. Take a look at their stuff. You can get a free version of the rules for free, as it turns out. And for about $5, you can get the fancy version of Grimdark Future. It's like a $5 PDF. The game itself can be very standalone. You can use whatever miniatures you want. It's very miniature agnostic. They also sell 3D printed miniatures like the STLs for you to print yourself, although they are now starting to sell actual physical models as well, that are either 3D printed resin or poured resin. There's all kinds of different things. But they are starting to do that as well now. But for the most part, a lot of people will just do the STLs. And but they're also the game was very well designed in that most of the forces that are in 40K are also kind of represented in the game. So you could be like, oh, okay, you guys have got robot overlords or robot legions or whatever. Yeah, those are kind of Necrons. And if you go onto the wiki for one-page rules, there's an entire list that says this thing in one-page rules, you could use this from 40K, or you could use this or this from 40K, and you get all those different options. So that's something to think about if you just want to change rules, but you're not interested in changing miniatures too much. If you're interested in changing miniatures, then I would tell you to look at skirmish games and see what you like, and then build a small force or two from a skirmish game. I just finished like yesterday. I've got four different forces now finished for Blackout, which is this kind of like tactical but like sci-fi game. It's not like tactical like, oh, it's Marines versus insurgents over in the, it's like taking place 150 years from now on a different planet. And so I'm like, okay, I can get behind that. That's pretty cool. But it's still got a very tactical vibe. The games play very quickly because it's not about like, oh, I've got 5 wounds. It's like, oh, I got shot. That guy's out. There's just no, you should really should have been in cover. You know what I mean? Um, so that's something to think about as well. But yeah, I mean, the trick is, I would say, is to at the very least hold on to your models, and maybe 11th edition will be more your speed, or 12th. Who knows? I mean, and then you can probably bring a bunch of your models back and then use them there. But I would also take definitely a strong look at one-page rules. Grimdark Future is their army style sci-fi game. Grimdark Future Firefight is their skirmish style sci-fi game. So that would probably work pretty well. I have so much Zombicide I need to paint that I primed over the summer last year. Yeah. Sam did a speed painting Zombicide video on the channel. It might have been the first video he ever did on my channel, like a long time ago, but it's got some really good stuff in it. May need to use some warm water to straighten parts out. Yeah, I've done that before with certain kind of plasticky stuff, or more slightly more heading into resin, like breaking a sauce when cooking. Oh, as far as yeah, glazing the paints. Yep, yep, yep. I'm gonna try adding a layer of Mod Podge over before priming on this next group. Bit behind. Thanks for explaining the logo breaks. Oh yeah, yeah. Like I said, it's an ad thing. They're changing things, and they're adding. I think using more AI basically to go, no, this is where your ad should be. And so I'm just going, this is where the ad should be. This 2-second spot where nothing happens, if you see a logo, that's where the ad should be. And it's so far worked relatively well. Warhammer got me into the hobby, went from 40K to Age of Sigmar to Infinity, Conquest, OPR, etc. I assume it is a common journey. A lot of people come in via Warhammer stuff because they have the most marketing budget, and you hear about it the most, and it's got 6,000 different novels and all that kind of stuff going on. In theory, soon to have TV shows, and of course, a lot of people watched the Secret Level thing that's on Amazon Prime. That was pretty cool. That animation was neat. And then of course there's the video games, and obviously that kind of stuff. So a lot of people do come in that way, and a lot of people stay, but a lot of people bounce off too because they're like, this is really cool, but I don't like painting miniatures, and there's nobody that can do nothing about that. If you're just not into painting miniatures, you bought some stuff, you tried it, you went ugh, okay, cool, that's fine, no harm, no foul. But there's also a lot of people who are like, look, this is a cool thing, but man, it is not cheap, or man, the rules constantly change, or man, like a lot of different things. Um, I made a video earlier part of the year about why people are leaving wargaming, reasons why people are leaving wargaming. And wargaming in general is growing, but there are still always people leaving. And I wanted to try to go through and try to identify what that was, what was causing that here and there. And there's all kinds of things, and I mentioned them in the video. And then in the comments, for the videos, it was a lot of people who were just like, either I'm leaving because 40K is constantly changing the rules, or I'm leaving because it's too expensive. Um, and again, both of those things are generally 40K stuff. There's so many, if you don't play those particular games, if those are the two problems you have, changing rules constantly and too expensive, there are lots of other options out there that don't change the rules nearly as much and also aren't as expensive. So, yeah. Are you going to Origins? No, no. I have been in the past. I was definitely there in 2018 and 2019. I think that was the only two. I feel like I went more, but I think I only went those 2 years. I think. Anyway, um, But no, I don't know if Army Painter has a booth this year there. I'm not sure. If they do, then maybe like next year there might be a more likely chance I might go. But in general, for the most part, like so far this year, for sure, the majority of the Army Painter Factory Team folks have been LVO and the first LVO, not second LVO, and then Adepticon and then Nova. Those seems to be the big three ones. Um, what would be interesting is to see if we start splitting up, where maybe like everybody's at Adepticon, but maybe some half the group go to LVO and half the group don't, and then the other half of the group go to maybe Origins or wherever. I mean, if you want miniatures conventions, it's LVO, it's Adepticon, and it's Nova. Origins is a overall tabletop convention, and so is Gen Con. So that's, I think, maybe part of the distinction there is that generally, as Army Painter folks, factory team, we go to the conventions that are specifically about miniatures, whereas Gen Con and like because they go to a bunch of stuff. They go to San Diego Comic Con. They do. They go to there's something called Dream Hack, which I thought was like a video game thing, but they're starting to get into tabletop stuff as well. They go to, I believe, PAX Unplugged. They were at GaryCon this year, but they didn't. It was just like the actual like people who work for Army Painter, like convention crew, as opposed to the convention crew plus us nerds from the factory team. That being said, it would be nice to go to Origins again. It was a decent convention, and also I generally get to see Vince and his lovely wife because they live nearby. So we go out for dinner or something. One of my favorite local hobby stores ended up dropping GW altogether because their representative didn't treat them good. Yeah, I've heard about that. I don't know if it's the same store, but they're definitely GW have been real weird about the way they've been dealing with stores lately. Like basically, because I got a couple of friends that are store owners, and they're like, yeah, you have to like they will give you a call on Monday, and then you have to make choices and fill out some sort of like Google document by like Wednesday. Otherwise, you're not going to get it, and blah blah blah. And it's this whole thing, and I'm like, you're a multi-billion-dollar market cap company, and you guys can't have a website back end for people to put their orders in. You got to use Google Docs. Are you crazy? Like Alliance, which is a big game distributor based out of Fort Wayne, Indiana. ACD, which is another big game distributor based out of Madison, Wisconsin. Like they are considerably smaller companies than GW, but they have a website that you, as a store owner, just go to and go, I want one of those and three of those and two of those and one of these and whatever, and then boop, and then it just gets to you. But yeah, no, GW is like, well, you got to do this and this and jump through this hoop and do this thing, and then you also have to use this Google document. Like, it's just astounding to me. Um, yeah, I don't know. Later alloys used to drill and pin. Oh, gotcha. Have to go. Have to get ready to watch a friend earn an award. Well, that's fun. I think the Blood and Zeal Kill Team box looked cool. Too bad it sold out almost immediately, and I can't even buy it. That's why it's important to call it GW for their business practices. Yeah, I don't know why they. Yeah, I don't know why. I just really want a Sisters of Silence Kill Team. I'm not buying any until then. Sure. Try EL Light Sheet Panel. EL for electroluminescent. EL. See, when I type in EL light sheet, it says basically EL sheet light, which is weird, but oh yeah, look at that. Websites. So if you type in EL sheet light, evidently then you get all kinds of flexible panels and stuff like that. That I'm assuming you could stick like a transparent thing over and then plug it in and make it like a cool sign. That's kind of neat. That's pretty cool. I'm going to hold on to that. Neato. All right. Just got to know what to type in, though. Yeah, evidently light sheet is a something about microscopes, and it's probably a brand name. But yeah, there we go. Got there eventually. Nice. I can't impress myself. I'm my own worst critic. Well, all this time I've been trying to impress my cats with my hobby. Well, trying to impress cats is going to be difficult. My cats just want to know why they can't lay in the middle of my desk while I hobby. Yes, yes, I've had that issue as well. So I didn't even realize this happened. But so my wife went and did some errands yesterday. I was down in the basement painting. I had to come upstairs because at noon I had the Patreon live show that I do once per month for the Patreon folks. So I had to come upstairs. So I come upstairs, I open the door, and George runs down the stairs like he sometimes does. George loves to go down the basement, and then you're like, George, and you have to go down and you get him, you pick him up, and he's a big moose. He's like 17 pounds. It's a big orange cat. And you pick him up, and he gets all twisty because he doesn't like to be held normally like a cat, like where you kind of put your arm underneath his feet and then you hold him like this and he's like looking that way. He wants to be like over your shoulder and like that, which is fine. So you pick him up and he's all like twisty until he gets over your shoulder. And then he just purrs. He is so happy with himself that he got down in the basement and you had to come down and chase him. I don't know what it is, but it's crazy. So anyway, I'm coming upstairs. He runs down the basement. I'm like, ugh. But I don't have time right now because I had to go to the bathroom or something. So just close the door. And then I'm like, I'll get him after I go to the bathroom. And then I completely forgot. So he was down there for who knows how long. And then I went and had to go start streaming. So then my wife comes home and she opens the back door and he's at the top of the steps from the basement. And then she's like, why are you here? And I completely forgot that I had left him in the basement. I mean, he went down there on himself. But I just didn't go chase after him because I had things to do. And then I like ate lunch real quick and then I had to do my stream. So, yep, that's how that worked. Um, Let's see here. Taking Zoe to volleyball practice. Nice. Scale modelers often talk about washing sprues in case of mold release agent, so it is used with polystyrene kits in some cases. Interesting. Let's see here. Wood plasma sounds like orky shenanigans. It kind of does. You're not wrong. A wood plasma gun? Yeah. I know the plasma gun you're talking about. I always assumed the wood grain was cracked bone. I always assumed it was wood grain, but it could be. Portions of Primaris are way better. I dislike the detail creep. Old Marines were perfect for just simple, easy painting. I mean, the newer stuff that they do there for sure. Newer stuff does have more detail. I was going to sell my painted metal models, but now that Reaper doesn't have a Canadian vendor, I think I'll give them to their own display shelf. Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Um, you can find LA's Totally Awesome at Dollar General. You can buy it in like half-gallon jugs there. Yeah, I usually bought it in like 32-ounce bottles for pretty cheap. Primaris Marines is what made me turn to Horus Heresy, but the Gravis suits do look good, just not enough for me to stand the Primaris stuff. Gotcha. Patrick Miniatures may have some brutalism in their Eastern Bloc buildings. I'm not familiar with Patrick Miniatures. Are they STL thing? Do they do STLs? Patrick Miniatures. Hmm. Where are we at time-wise? Okay. Let me get the miniatures. Oh, here we go. Terrain. Thank you for... Go away. Shoot. If any... Well, Zona Alpha could also be... No, that's... Hmm. So this looks like brutalism to some degree. Click. There we go. Zona Alpha Priapat, or however that's pronounced, apartment tower. Yeah, that's not. It's kind of brutalism. It's not bad. I like it. Eastern European in general. Let's see what we get. Got an outhouse. We got some buildings. Eh. It's a couple of buildings heading in the right direction, but I'd like to see somebody make some like really cool Soviet apartment block type. Yeah, that's heading in that direction too. It's cool though. Yeah. So there's a couple in there. I could definitely see that being something. That's just patrickminiatures.de, which I think is that Deutschland? I don't know. Is War Scenery working with Zorpazorp? I don't know. I always like talking to them when I see them at shows. They're nice guys. One day I'll wake up on time and be able to catch the whole show. Well, I'll be getting that Wood Elf dragon. I've been waiting since Old World was announced for this dragon. So it is an Old World dragon. That makes more sense. There's a topic for making a video. What a person needs in their studio to set up and produce their own hobby podcast. Or have you already done that? I've never really focused on equipment production-wise, I guess, on my channel. There's plenty of channels out there, not in the wargaming space, but more in the content creation space that do that type of stuff. But I it's a video that I could see being useful. I could see it would get almost no views because only a few people would really care. I honestly think that maybe Miniac did a video like that a while back, and it didn't perform super great, which whatever. But yeah. Don't get into 40K unless it is the first year of their 3-year cycle. That's probably a good piece of advice for sure. If you're going to get into 40K, do it when a new edition comes out. That's the best time, and it's still not a great time. Have you tried the brush on primer from Monument Hobbies that Vince likes? No, I didn't know that. Well, I mean, I've used their airbrush primer. Is it just that, or do they have a separate brush on primer? I haven't heard about that. I make videos on my phone and pocket camera, not much else. Sure, yeah. What hobby tax? I mean, the hobby tax usually refers to when you go to the hobby store to buy a thing that you could also instead get maybe from the hardware store, and it's much more expensive. Like when you get like special snippers designed for hobby snipping, like for clipping sprues and stuff like that. They can be a lot more expensive than just side cutters from the hardware store. That's kind of the hobby tax. It's not a real tax technically. Now tariffs, that's a different story altogether. But yeah. Things marketed for the hobby tend to be more expensive. Oh, yeah, there you go. Someone backed that right up. I highly recommend One Page Rules. Me too. It has revitalized me and my son's interest in Warhammer 40K. Nice. Packs of ballast for railways are greater value for money than packs sized for gamers, for example. Yeah, there's sometimes that too. I'm enjoying having a play group to play with. Even when I'm not playing, I enjoy watching. Nice. It's so funny because people are like, I see people like, I don't know, it's generally older people who are like, why do people watch people play video games on the internet? They just sit there and just watch them play video games. And I think back to when I was in college, or, well, yeah, college, but also even post college, when, especially post college, like on a Friday night before we would go out to the bars and stuff like that and everything, it would be very frequently the three of us, it was me and my two roommates. Sean would be sitting there playing on the PlayStation 1, Tomb Raider. And Phil and I would be sitting back on the couch and we'd be, pre-gaming a little bit or whatever, maybe eating a snack or something like that. And just be like, and Sean would be like, "You guys want to play?" And we'd be like, "No, just." And it would be fun to watch and go, "Hey, you should do this," and oh, hey, and that's like the initial, that's like proto chat basically in YouTube, in Twitch or whatever. And yeah, it was just really enjoyable to watch somebody else play, and that's really where Twitch comes out. Has Snarlcast ever thought about taking listener questions? I've kicked around the concept a little bit myself. I haven't broached it to Vince yet. Vince is out of town currently. So we're not, usually we meet on Sunday nights. We usually meet tonight, but we're not meeting tonight because he's traveling. So, but I it's something to think about. We do have like a spot now in our Discord for just the Snarlcast. So we might make a second spot just for questions, maybe. That could be, I don't know. We'll think about it, but it's a thing I have thought about. What in particular is brutalism as a style set? I can't explain it as well as just like if you type in brutalism definition, probably into Google, but it is an architectural style that's a lot of just big boxes and flat lines and a lot of concrete. That's my best description, but I'm sure there's smarter people on every place else that could explain it better. Let's see here. 4 3D printers, all the paint I need for the rest of my life, retired and 13 years old again. Nice. Watching video game play seems pretty much the same as watching any sports on TV. That's a good point too. I had an old boss who was like, my grandkid's constantly watching just videos about, Minecraft. I don't understand it. Watching somebody else play a video game, I'm like, what do you do every Sunday? You watch somebody play football. Do you play football? Because your son plays Minecraft. I mean, it's the same type of thing, kind of. Just finished our first season of a Space Station Zero League this week. Nice. We had a blast and can't wait to see what secrets we unlock through the campaign. Fantastic game, by the way. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's one that, I mean, we're proud of all of our games. I would say Space Station Zero is probably my second favorite. If I had to choose, my first favorite probably being Majestic 13. But yeah, PS1 Tomb Raider, Wipeout, Bushido Blade. Oh yeah. We also had Tekken. I had Tomb Raider, Wipeout, Tekken, and later on Bushido Blade. But yeah, absolutely. I have a gas mask for resin printing, but no cartridges. What cartridges should I get? I think you don't, because they're not dealing with fumes, they really only have to stop particulates, so you don't need super fancy ones. Search Brutalism and Bauhaus, you get tons of documentaries breaking it down. Oh yeah, for sure. I remember I borrowed a friend's copy of Tomb Raider and was so impressed it convinced me to get a PS1. I remember I bought the PS1. I think I used like a tax return or something like that, but I needed, tax return plus. I had to add more money, and then when I brought it home, I bought it at Sears, if I remember correctly, and then because they were having a sale, it was like I was checking everywhere, and there was like a sale, and so I bought the PS1 with like two controllers, so you get one controller, and you bought the second controller separate, and then Tekken, and I don't remember if I got Tekken, Wipeout, and Tomb Raider all at the same time. I don't feel like I did. I know I got Tekken, and then I either got Wipeout or Tomb Raider, and then later on I got the other one or whatever and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it definitely was a thing that we did a lot at the there when we lived over there on that place burned down. Place we lived, me and Sean and Phil lived there from 95 to 98, and I think it burned down. Not while we were there. Years and years and years later. Now I think it is a little grass field, but it was a nice place. Well, it wasn't. It was a place we enjoyed. Um, Without googling, brutalism is a sincere expression of the natural or man-made materials in the construction, as I remember. Interesting. Big Tekken fan here since the early 2000s, planning to go to my first tournament at 30 years old. Nice, nice. All right, folks, it's 11 o'clock here in my neck of the woods, technically 11:02. But I want to thank everybody for coming by. And we got to talk about brutalism, and we got to talk about all kinds of things. And I'm going to determine what I want to do to paint my little buildings and go along from there. I will show you folks as I go along. I'll probably post things on Instagram. I've already started posting those buildings on Instagram a little bit, so you can follow me on Instagram. It's down here, just Tabletop Minions on Instagram. You'll find it. But I do want to. I've got a bunch of ideas on how I want to do this table. I've got a lot of things going on, so I'll keep you folks informed on that as well. So have yourselves a good weekend, the rest of your weekend, unless it's already Monday. Then have yourselves a good week, and if you get the chance, do some hobby if you want to. If you get the time, and if you're interested in doing so, and stay safe. And thanks for coming by and hanging out and chatting. And thanks for watching.